I've known you for a few years now. And every time I see you or we speak, you've got new insight into something, and you're always down to share that information. You're always down to share contacts. This is something that the cannabis community needs now more than ever, because it was just part of our community leading into what I called Cannabis 2.0, the transition from the gray area to quasi legality, and now we see from state to state going decrim or full legalization. What has been the biggest obstacle for you along the years that you've been in the business?
Ooh, that question, it changes as seasons go by because the obstacles change. I'd say a common thread that we could all agree on, that, and I'll say we as in women in cannabis, because that segment, it matters. It's funding. It's finding funding, access to the support that we need to really grow our business. Now, add to it a layer. I am a Black woman in cannabis. I am a mother in cannabis, and an educated professional who is transitioning industry, so to speak, right? And then going public with what I'm doing. The second thing that I have faced is the stigma that comes with that, and having to be able to really manage it personally, and feel proud and no shame about what I'm doing. But for sure, funding and the stigma. Those are the challenges in cannabis for so many reasons. For me, especially as a woman of color in cannabis.
It seems like an ongoing theme. A lot of people recognize, a woman of color, you're already at the bottom of the business totem pole, so to speak, in mainstream America, but adding another layer on top of that in the cannabis industry, that could be very, very disheartening for a lot of women of color looking to enter the space.
I mean, it could be dangerous. And this is not something that I want. I'm not at all a fearful human. Like, I try to avoid fear, so to speak. I face it. So I'm not spreading fear. This is not a dog whistle, but it can be dangerous, literally. Me being public in the space, me being a mother, me being a professional educator. At any point, we live in a society where people sometimes, hurt people.
Right.
And so I always have to be cognizant of the risk I'm taking. That's what I mean by dangerous.
This business carries a lot of risks, period. Still not federally legal. We have an incoming administration who rhetorically says the right things,
but flip-flops on policy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and telling a lot of my clients heading into 2021, Donald Trump on his side of the equation, he's just going to listen to whoever tells him whatever the words are of the day. If this is making money, this is the way we need to go. With Harris and Biden ticket, she's a cop. She was a prosecutor, and he prosecuted plenty of folks and threw them in jail, and he was a huge contributor to the war on drugs. So how do you see the Biden-Harris presidency, I should say, no longer a ticket? How do you see them on the short term, and then I'd say on the midterm? I don't really look past 2 years anyway.
Yeah, right. I mean, everything changes, the 2-year approach. So short term and long term, I think I reconcile this whole federal presidency stuff with the fact that it changes every 4 years, that's the system we set up. So I don't get too attached. 2, they're doing a job. She was doing a job as a prosecutor. Now she's doing a job as VP, which is a job of a politician. Right. So they have to say the things that we need to hear to get our vote. They need to say it in the way that we need to hear it to get our vote. And then they need to do as much of it as possible to make us not talk about them after 4 years for the rest of history in a negative way. I am very, very reconciled with that reality. So short term, we might see some verbal support of a nationwide decriminalization. I don't think we're going to see any broad sweeping legislative changes within the next 2 years. I think we might see with this next 2-year vote, on other seats, that we'll see some local changes. Within 5 years, I think federal legalization will be on the ticket. It'll be necessary in the next presidential election. I think necessary if it doesn't happen in these 4 years. But if we don't get it together as an industry first, if we don't get it together at state, at the state level,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm about to reveal my conservative side here, I frankly think this is something that should be left to the state.
Yeah.
So we need to figure that out first before we even try to push for any sort of national legalization. And I do not believe decriminalization is the way. That is not the first step to take.
So you're more in the legalization camp over decriminalization. Why is that?
Well, I think decriminalization leaves too much room for there still to be that disproportionality, because now you're decriminalizing what? Okay, we're gonna non-violent cannabis crimes. This is the issue with the recent MORE Act, right? And we know what happens to men and women of color with cannabis. They disproportionately get a violent crime attachment to this, right? Versus their white peers. So now you're gonna decriminalize what? And that conversation, we're not ready to have it. We're not ready to have it. So we just need to go full legalization. Just skip over all the bullshit. Right. It's legal, but again, even within there, we've got to consider like the disproportionality of what it means to be a violent offender.
100%. And it's something I struggle with daily. And I was more in the decriminalization camp than anything else first for the educational side.
I was too at first. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Like I always say, man, the toothpaste is out of the tube right now, and it's up to them. They got to fix the shit. The fact that they threw people in jail that shouldn't have been in jail. They tore families apart. They actually killed people for this illegal and racist war on drugs. And the data, I'm more of a data-driven person, period. And the data don't lie. You take your emotion out of all of that. They waged war on certain communities, and it was a choice that they made.
So I've said this publicly, and I've said it in some of our Club Kindness workshops, and I'll say it again. Here it is. They literally used cannabis and the war on drugs to replace slavery. It was period. That was it. It was very intentional. It was like, we need to find a way to use this amendment to justify re-enslaving people, because our economy took a shit because slavery's not legal anymore. And so how do we rebuild it? We create new slaves by making them felons. And it just, this is like some Kanye shit. It's brilliant if that's what you're trying to do to people. You know what I mean? But like, it's fucked up if that's what you're trying to do to people. And this is based solely on the idea or the belief that we are white and they are black. This is an idea. It blows my mind. And so now if we dismantle
the other, right?
That's it. The fear. It's the fear. And if we dismantle this, right? If we dismantle this, we've got to dismantle everything. So I read something the other day, like, how come cannabis isn't legal in the United States? Well, because it's built into the system. Like, if we decriminalize or we legalize, we've got to start picking apart these details like violent cannabis crimes and who gets them disproportionately. We have to break all that apart. That's a lot of work.
Literal foundation and the perceived foundation of the country are two very different things. And the perceived foundation has never had to do that work. So how are you going to make them do work all of a sudden?
Right. And
it's
a DNA thing too. Sense. Like, exactly. It's like we are physically different human beings now because of this. Our cells change and they start to multiply and they have more receptors for what the old ones had. So if we start being addicted to drama, then we start doing things to bring more drama to us.
Right.
And so, I don't know, everybody needs to sit down and meditate, smoke some weed and meditate.
I could not agree with you more. All right.